Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Tuesdays, wherever you may be, across this great nation or around the world. We are rolling closer to the holiday season, to Christmas. Everybody's slowly starting to drop out of the workforce. I can feel you. I can see you. I know that many of you have already dialed out completely. In fact, I bet many of you are watching this at work right now or while you are claiming to be working. So we got a bunch to dive into. I'm going to tell you about the college football playoff. The big Trump settlement. I didn't talk about it that much yesterday. Why I think ABC News and George Stephanopoulos paying Donald Trump $15 million a big deal. I caught up on Yellowstone. Have a take for you about the end of that season. Judge Merchan will not toss the felonies. I'll talk a bit about that. Cat people voted Kamala, dog people voting Trump. The girl who is trying to sleep with 100 people, I guess she's already doing it. Now she's trying to sleep with 1,000 men. It's a weird story. Lots of discussion about who's to blame. What are the angles of analyzing it? Angles may be the appropriate word there as well. But let's start with the college football playoff. And I have a confession for all of you. I'm not going because it's too cold. And I don't know, some of you out there can judge me. I'm a fan of the University of Tennessee. They are in a playoff game in Columbus, Ohio, and it's going to be like, Adam, you can give me the absolute latest, but I think it's going to be like 15 or 20 degrees. I am a weather wuss. I will decide not to go outdoors for sporting events on a somewhat regular basis if it's too cold. I don't want to layer up. I don't want to be cold in the crowd. This is where the modern day version of television or streaming or however you're going to consume products, it's better than the vast majority of seats when the weather's bad. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to be sitting beside my roaring fireplace, kicking my feet up on Saturday night. I'm going to be watching games all day long. If this game were in Miami, I would go. If this game were in a dome, like let's say Atlanta, I would go. It's outdoors in Columbus, Ohio. I wouldn't go to Penn State. I wouldn't go to South Bend, Indiana. Austin, if I were in the area or if my team were going, I'd probably go to Austin. Am I in the minority here? A lot of people talk a big game. And when I share this clip, people are going to be like, oh, you're not a real fan. But actually, the data reflects that a lot of people agree with me. In fact, I was looking at the ticket market, and the ticket market for all these playoff games is actually not that great, meaning you can get in to only pay a couple of $100. If you want to go watch Penn State play against SMU, you want to go watch, I think the Notre Dame-Indiana game is actually the most expensive. And that makes a little bit of sense to me because almost everyone that's going, by and large, to the Notre Dame-Indiana game is already in the state of Indiana. So it doesn't cost very much money to be able to go. But there are a lot of Tennessee fans going. I think there's going to be 20, 25,000 or so Tennessee fans in the game. And a lot of people are going because the cost isn't that high. And I think the reason the cost isn't that high is because a lot of people are selling their tickets they would rather watch at home. Adam is in. He's saying he's going to wear his snowboard gear, and he's judging me. The weather at the kickoff is going to be 22 degrees with a little bit of flurries going on. Windy, too. It's going to be really, really cold. And he's judging me, Adam is. And maybe some of you are judging. I'm going to watch them all at home. I'm feeling pretty good about that decision. Now, if Tennessee wins and they go play against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, I'll go out to the Rose Bowl. LA, really nice weather. Rose Bowl, beautiful. I'll make that trip. But I think most people actually agree with me. People won't say it publicly, but I think a lot of you watching right now are also feeling the same way as me. You're like, if the weather's not going to be that bad, why would you not watch it at home? I will say this. Back in the day of standard definition televisions, you could make an argument that there were a lot of seats in a stadium where the environment is better than watching on standard definition televisions. Everybody basically in America now has a 40-inch flat screen television. A lot of you got, like, what do they sell at Costco now? 85-inch flat screen televisions for like $1,500. I mean, it's astounding how affordable these things have gotten. I remember buying a flat screen television back in like 04, 05 when it was a big deal and they were super expensive. I mean, you can go into Costco right now and get a 65-inch television for like $1,000. I mean, it's unbelievable how affordable they've all gotten. The experience of watching sports on television has never been better. And I think, frankly, especially if you're in the upper deck and the wind is whipping around and you are super cold, I just don't think the experience as a fan is that great. Now, I would have gone to Neyland if Tennessee had a home football game and I would have put up with the cold. Maybe I would have gotten into a box, but I would have put up with the cold probably. But I don't go watch the Titans unless the weather's perfect. Titans are awful. And they just benched Will Levis, by the way. That news just came down. So Mason Rudolph's going to start the last 3 games. Titans are, 3-11, 3-12. I don't even know how many games they played right now. I honestly, it wouldn't even be a difficult decision, I don't think. And so I think if you break all this down, easy call. So I'm not going. Now, Kelly Stewart and I are going to do a gambling special on Thursday, and we'll obviously be talking about all 4 of the college football games. But everybody is basically a 7-point or more favorite. I think the best game is going to be Tennessee-Ohio State because I think it's the most evenly matched game. And I also think it has the most drama associated with it because there is a lot of antipathy right now, a lot of unhappiness in the Ohio State Buckeye fan base. And I don't know that Tennessee can come out and get up in this game. But if they do, I think the crowd in the shoe is going to turn on Ohio State in a big way. And I think that is going to rain down that pressure onto Ryan Day. And let me give you a little bit of a breakdown about what I expect to happen in this game because I feel like I know Ohio State and Tennessee's teams both fairly well. I think that Ohio State is not great at running the football. Their offensive line is also been injured, beaten up. They'll be better after 3 weeks off. But I think what Chip Kelly's going to do is get the ball out of his quarterback's hand as fast as he possibly can. There are a lot of playmakers at wide receiver for Ohio State. They are incredibly deep there. I think you're going to see a lot of bubble screens. I think you're going to see a lot of quick slants. And they're going to try to negate any sort of pass rush advantage that Tennessee might have against that offensive line, get rid of the ball really quick. Question, can Tennessee jump some of those routes, make plays? We'll see. On the other side of the ball, I think it comes down to how well Nico plays because I feel really good about Tennessee's ability to have some success running the football. Dylan Sampson's the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. That there's going to be some one-on-one matchups as a result because they're going to try to take away Tennessee's ability to consistently run the football. Can Nico make plays in the passing game? I think that is the ultimate question that will dictate who wins this football game. I'll give you a little bit of a preview. I'm going to pick Tennessee to cover, Ohio State to win. 21-17 Ohio State, 20-17, 23-20. I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring game up there in the cold, and I think ultimately Ohio State at home will find a way to get the win. If Tennessee was playing in Neyland, I would actually pick Tennessee to win, but this is where I think the home field advantage is going to work in their favor. But if you wanted me to sketch out how Tennessee wins, I think Tennessee gets up early, puts that pressure on Ohio State, takes away the run game, takes away the quick passes, and makes Ohio State beat you down the field. I don't think Ohio State's great at quarterback. Their receivers, again, elite level talent. Tennessee's pretty good in the secondary. I think it'll come down to Nico, and I just think Nico has not shown me consistently that he can make great throws on the road in the most pressure-packed moments. So that's why I think ultimately Ohio State will get the win, but I'll be watching from the comfortable environment of my home beside the roaring fireplace as opposed to being out in the cold, and I think a lot of you are going to agree with me on that. This $15 million Trump settlement, I think it's a big deal. Additional $1 million reportedly coming also from George Stephanopoulos from an interview they did with Congresswoman Nancy Mace. By the way, this morning we played an interview that's getting some news attention from Congresswoman Nancy Mace about UFOs and the drones and all those different things. That's up on, I'm assuming, our YouTube channel. You can go check that out at, you search out OutKick. And by the way, I love all of you on the YouTube channel. I think we're coming up on nearly 2 million subscribers on the YouTube channel. We have a monster audience day in and day out there. I appreciate all of you that watch me there. You might be noticing, by the way, I could have mentioned this off the top, different backdrop than I normally have for the OutKick show. That's intentional because I'm going to have to turn and get on Fox News with Martha McCallum right at the bottom of this hour. So in about 12 or 13 minutes, I'm going to bail here, and I'll be flipping over to do Fox News to get ready there. What does this $15 million settlement from ABC News to Trump mean? First of all, that ABC, through their anchor George Stephanopoulos, really screwed up when they said a bunch of different times during that interview with Congresswoman Nancy Mace that Trump had been adjudicated in a civil court to have been culpable for rape. That was not true. In fact, the jury, to my recollection, and Adam, you can look this up and confirm it. I remember talking about it back when it happened, the E. Jean Carroll case. They actually determined that Trump was civilly liable for sexual assault, but they determined that he was not liable for rape. That is, the jury in that case determined that Trump did not rape E. Jean Carroll. They found him guilty of sexual assault under the standards of New York law. That means they found, that jury did, that Trump had touched her inappropriately, but not that he had raped her. So not only was George Stephanopoulos wrong in his distinction between rape and sexual assault, he was actually wrong on what the verdict was. Now, they don't like Trump, so I don't think it's a surprise that they got this wrong. As I have said for some time, if it were just incompetence and negligence from the media, then occasionally they would get things wrong in Trump's favor. That never happens. The joke I've made for some time is there'd be a story out there that Trump had saved 20 kittens. If they just got things wrong sometimes, that would be the actual result. They would get things wrong in favor of Trump. That never happens. They only get things wrong against him, and I think that's because there's bias and it's lined up against Trump. But as a result, Trump has now filed lawsuits like crazy. It's like when you hit on the roulette wheel or you hit on the craps table, or maybe you just got a big win. You had 7 and a 4 showing, and you split them, and or you got double, whatever. You had a big win in a gambling table. Then sometimes you start betting more because you're playing with house money. Trump's playing with house money now. And what I would suggest is this $15 million from ABC News, $1 million from Stephanopoulos, it's actually supposed to go to Trump's presidential library. I think he should have a wing of the Trump presidential library dedicated to fake news, paid for by ABC News for the fake news report that he sued them under that they had to acknowledge that they were wrong about. This settlement came right before the deposition was going to begin, and I think ABC News was really nervous based on the fact that they were clearly wrong, that there might have been evidence out there that Stephanopoulos engaged in reckless behavior here and had been informed that this was not a rape conviction. And by the way, conviction is the wrong word from me. And a lot of people do this when you have a civil versus a criminal context. He wasn't in any way criminally liable. It was entirely a financial verdict. And that ties me in with Judge Merchan, who will not toss the felonies, he announced, that the convictions occurred in New York City from Alvin Bragg. What do I think about this case? I've been saying for a long time that Trump is ultimately going to be vindicated in this case. I think it's going to be tossed. But allow me to be a nerd here from a legal perspective. I think a lot of people, because of Trump being involved, have missed the incredible significance of the Supreme Court ruling having to do with presidential immunity. Because essentially what the Supreme Court said was there's a difference between criminal liability when it comes to official and unofficial acts of a president. And that is a fact-based determination that has to occur in order for there to be charges brought against the president. And ultimately, almost everything Jack Smith charged Trump with would have been an official act, I believe. And if you're sitting around out there and you're like, okay, what's the difference between an official act and an unofficial act? The president talking to his attorney general and saying, I want you to investigate this issue is an official act as president, even if he's asking his attorney general to investigate, for instance, whether the 2020 election was rigged or fair or not, right? That's an official act. An unofficial act would be if the president of the United States punched a random person in the Oval Office and it had absolutely nothing to do with his presidency. In theory, the president could be charged with assault or battery. Does that make sense? So that would be an unofficial act. The president couldn't commit a murder of someone in the Oval Office or in the official White House residency, or couldn't commit a murder anywhere. That wouldn't be considered an official act. Paying in the Stormy Daniels case, Trump argued that it was, and partly this case turns on whether or not the payment or the promise to payment is the act. And this is, again, to me, going down the rabbit hole and being a lawyer nerd. Trump didn't pay Stormy Daniels until after he was already president. But he agreed to pay her before he was president. So to what extent do presidential powers encompass an election? And when does the agreement take effect such that it could be construed as a presidential act or not? It's actually really fascinating. And everybody gets so wrapped up in Trump that they don't really pay attention to the larger story here, which is this precedent is going to apply to every president for the next several hundred years, and we're all going to be arguing about official versus unofficial acts. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. So that's my take. The case is going to get tossed, I think, because it was a misdemeanor elevated to a felony, and in order for that to happen, they had to find a secondary crime. And I don't believe the secondary crime linchpin is going to suffice under New York state law. I think that's where eventually this case is going to get tossed. Yellowstone. Last night I caught up and I finished the full viewing of Yellowstone. And I thought the final episode, the season finale, I guess the series finale, was really mediocre. I would give it a 5 on the scale of 1 to 10. I believe Kevin Costner made a poor decision not to return and film the final 6 episodes. Surely they could have figured it out from a schedule perspective, how that was going to be set up, how it was going to be done. That doesn't seem like a really difficult issue to resolve. As a result, I think they were trying to fix a final few episodes that made it very, very difficult. And it felt like to me they were just ready for the entire show to be over. So as popular and powerful and compelling as many different Yellowstone episodes were, and it is the most popular drama on television, I thought it was a poor conclusion. Now, that's very common. The only show that I've watched in recent history and I've thought, man, you know what, that show completely stuck the landing, was Breaking Bad, which had a perfect series finale. Otherwise, shows that I've really liked, The Sopranos, Lost. Succession I thought was pretty good. But by and large, Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm, by and large, those shows fail to stick the landing. I think that Breaking Bad is the best series finale, not season finale, series finale of any program that I can remember in modern history, where when it finished, you thought, oh, man, I really feel like validated by the time that I spent on that. You know how a lot of how a book concludes makes you determine whether or not you feel as if you were actually spending your time wisely. To me, that was one that follows in a long litany of not particularly entertaining subjects out there. Not a fan of the way that Yellowstone ended. Speaking of not a fan, I think I've talked about everything on the list except this one. I saw Charlie Arnault talking about this on OutKick AM, the morning show that we have. A lot of people have been weighing in. I know there's several different articles. Joe Kinsey, who's one of our really entertaining writers at OutKick, does fabulous work. He evidently watched a movie that they made about this. I'll be honest, I have not been completely plugged in on this story, but there's an OnlyFans model that slept with 100 men in the same day. Yeah. And now she's going to try to sleep with 1,000 men in the same day. And there's been a big debate about, hey, which is worse, the woman making the decision to do this or the men lining up to be a part of this? My answer is both are bad. All right. I don't think this woman is making a very sound decision. It frankly doesn't seem safe to me. And I think that she's making a poor life choice. It's not illegal. So she has the right to do it as a grown woman. From a man's perspective, I think this is so weird. I actually think the decision to be one of 100 men or to be one of 1,000 men, if I had to rank, is so incredibly distasteful. Do they have an on-deck circle? Is this like the Royal Rumble where you draw a number? Because trust me, there's a big difference between 1 and 1,000. If you're going to do it, you want to be in the first couple. You don't want to be at 999. I can't believe that this is real. And some of you out there are going to say, well, she's only doing it for the attention. Of course. And you can't talk about it, but everybody's talking about it. And now it's turned into a debate about who's more at fault, men or women here. Both is the answer. But I actually find the male decision to be worse because there are 100 men making a bad decision, and there now are 1,000 men potentially that are going to make a bad decision as opposed to one woman. So, look, I don't think she's making a healthy or smart or safe decision. And I can't imagine being a family member of this girl. But it's one person, one woman making a poor choice. There are 1,000 men that are lining up to do this. And let me just flip the sexes. No matter how good looking the guy was, let's pretend it's physically possible because obviously it is not. There's no way 1,000 women would stand in line to have sex for a minute and a half with one man. Again, let's presume that he's capable, biologically, physically capable, which nobody is. There's no way 1,000 women would make this decision. So to me, if I'm assessing which is the worst decision-making group here, one woman, poor choice, 1,000 men, that's 1,000 men making a bad choice. So to me, the male decision to be one of 1,000 is worse than the female decision to be one of one. That's what kind of stands out. That's 41, Adam's doing the math for me, 41.6 dudes an hour on average. I mean, come on. A minute and change for every single one of them. I don't even know how the math works on that, meaning I don't know how it's possible to keep that that group rolling through. I guess there's like basically a pit crew that's keeping the line going. Gross. I'm going to say men are more at fault than women here because it's one woman, it's tons of men. All right. I have got to do the show now with Martha McCollum. I will be on Fox News. You can flip me on there. I'll be back tomorrow with another OutKick show, with another Clay and Buck show. Appreciate all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis, and this has been OutKick the show.